Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Welcome back. Bible study. Matthew 16:28. Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Mark 9:1. Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see that the kingdom of God has come with power. Luke 9:27. Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the kingdom of God. 3 times it says that there are those standing here, and these are each one of these are Jesus speaking to a crowd of people. Maybe not a big crowd, but some of his disciples. 3 times it mentions, there will be those of you alive when I return with my kingdom. So what the theologians argue is that the event that they call the Transfiguration was Jesus returning with his kingdom. One, there's no kingdom within the story of the Transfiguration. The Transfiguration is an event where Jesus was said to be glowing. You know, he had died, he'd come back, and now he's glowing, and Elijah was there, and I think Moses was there, which are people that were dead. That's the Transfiguration, or at least that's part of how that story goes. But there's no kingdom involved. He says he's returning with his kingdom. Again, what the theologians are arguing is that him glowing is evidence of the kingdom, is evidence of something special occurring. Okay, we can go with that. An interesting thing about it, though, is that, one, this is 2,000 years ago, right? Jesus says that there will be those of you alive when I return with my kingdom. That was 2,000 years ago. The return of Jesus is supposed to be when Armageddon starts. Armageddon still hasn't happened, at least not like to its fruition. Again, what the theologians will argue is that what has gone on since the Transfiguration has been, I guess, this slow progression of Armageddon occurring. But that's really an odd interpretation, given that the Armageddon is supposed to be the end of wickedness. How much wickedness have we seen in the last few thousand years? It's going on right now, wickedness. There is still wars, still death, still famine. Jesus returned 2,000 years ago. There are millions of grandmothers, mine being one of them, standing at the train station for a train that's already passed. It's already come. Jesus said that there will be those of you alive when I return with my kingdom. What are you waiting for? A lot of people don't even realize this. Like I say, it's the Bible tricks you in such a deviant way. There's so many people who call themselves followers, they haven't actually read the book. They'll go to what they call Bible study, which is just cherry picking nice verses here and there. Every now and then they may throw in something a little bit more complex, a little bit more revealing. But the thing about that is that most of us don't have very good reading and comprehension skills. And this is one of the things, again, this is what pisses me off, because theologians are basically intellectual bullies. They're taking advantage of people who aren't whose intelligence doesn't manifest in the articulation or the comprehension of words. Everybody has some degree of intelligence, but not everybody's good with words. I'm not too bad with them, but I know that that's not evidence of me being better than anybody. Some people are good at math. I'm not great at it. I'm okay with it. But, some people, I've known a lot of people who don't read well, but boy, you put some numbers in front of them, you get their check wrong, they'll straighten you out. Jesus said 2,000 years ago that there will be those of you alive when I return with my kingdom. Now, whether or not the transfiguration is a valid indication of the return, that's in question as well. But I know that that's what the theologians argue, so we'll go with it. We'll let them say that that's the case. Him glowing being evidence of a kingdom, you're kind of stretching it. And this is what I was talking about before, where, it just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. You got to go through you got to jump through so many hoops, to make this make sense. There's always some excuse that's being made for shit that's not clear. The God of the Bible, if the story were true, it wouldn't be so complicated. It wouldn't be so weird and hard to understand. Again, you love children, you're going to make it easy for them to understand. This shit requires so many mental gymnastics and stretches of the imagination. Simplicity versus confusion. 30 to 45,000 different versions of Christianity. I'm gonna start hammering that home all the time, because, again, as I mentioned it in the last video, as I look at things, that is a key evidence. 30 to 45,000 different versions. Some years ago, when I was working in the jails, so I worked at a jail in Linwood called CRDF. And the group that I was a part of, we would usually take the freeway there. And on one occasion, it was just me and my one mentor, actually, on this one occasion. And we decided to drive down what is essentially, Linwood is in Watts. And so we took the streets and we came down Vermont Boulevard. And there was a point where I started noticing all these churches. I was like, I'm going to count all these churches. There were 40 different churches between about maybe a 2-mile drive, 2 to 3 mile drive, 40 different churches. One here, one there, one here, one there, one here, one there, one here. This shit is crazy. There's no way that the God of the Bible, the God of the Bible is not the creator of the universe, and the Bible story, Abraham's story in itself, is a ruse. It is not the truth of things. Sometimes I speak, and I've mentioned before, sometimes I speak in a way that I feel like I'm endorsing the story. When I say that Jesus is Lucifer, it almost sounds as if I'm saying that the story is true. I'm not. I'm saying that within the context of the story, it's an inversion. It's misleading you. It's the hero is the villain. It's all untrue. Ultimately, when I say all, I'm speaking of most of it. There are things in the Bible that I think are true. I mean, treat others the way you want to be treated and things like that. Simple lines. Those are the things that you can kind of count on. The threads that weave between different traditions, that's something that I've always looked for. If it's something that the Christians say and the Muslims say and the Jews say and the Buddhists say and the Native Americans say, yeah, those are probably the things that you can rely on. But as we know, when it comes to Abraham, there's this giant story with all kinds of weird shit going on that's not really relevant to you being good and moral. You don't need all that. I don't need to know about somebody sleeping in a fish. Why is that there? Why is that there? That's there because it's a trick and it's a clue. It's meaning to show you that there's something wrong. Why? There's no value in me knowing about or having to contemplate a man sleeping inside of a fish. There's no value in that story other than it being a clue meant to wake you up, meant to say, hey, this is a riddle. You going to believe this? You better stop. You better look around. The good things that are in the Bible are found in most major religions. You'll find good things in all major religions. I mean, I would say, well, major ones, yeah. You'll find good things in all the major ones. There's some minor ones that may get a little bit crazy. But as we know in our culture, Western culture, most traditions are Bible-oriented, Abraham-oriented. They are all one of the 30 to 45,000 different versions of the story. So, like I said before, people are good. And I know Christians, I know Muslims, I've known Jews that are good, solid people. But in being good and in being solid, they're naive. The ideal of a chosen people is one of the key clues, one of the first things that woke me up, really. One of the first things that I woke up to. There's something wrong with that. If a father is loving and wise, right, and he's got 3 children, one's named Judah, one's named Christian, the other one is named Islam. Wisdom would not allow that loving father to tell his 3 sons, and these 3 sons are always fighting, right? As sons often do. I got 3 sons who are always fighting. Wisdom is not going to allow you to leave them. I'm going to go away for a couple days, couple years, couple thousand years, and I'm going to leave this ideal that I love one more than the other. One of you are chosen, the other one is not. That's not how a loving father is going to act. A loving father is going to tell you all to work together. I love you all. You all have your qualities. There are certain elements where it may be best for the oldest to lead. And then there may be other situations where it's best for the younger to lead. That's loving wisdom. Not, well, I love you more than I love you, or you're chosen. The rest of you should just follow him and I'm gone. Again, these kids are always fighting. You know that they're going to fight. You know that they're going to fight. So, that's what that is. So what we call Bible study, if we're being earnest, if we're being honest, and this is what I strive to be. I've said it before. I'm a realist. I want the truth. If you're going to read the Bible, wisdom dictates that after you've turned the page twice at the most, you've got to realize I got to take notes. So for all the people claiming to have studied the Bible, you got notes? You got notes on that? I tried. I read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy consecutively many, many years ago. I read it all and I was trying to read the whole thing. And it got to a point where it's like, this is too, I don't have time to do all of this. I mean, I have to basically stop working, stop having any fun, and just spend all my days. And I'm not doing that. I'm about to have a good time. I'm only alive for a short period. I've got conditions and I've got children. I've got, if I'm being honest, I've got to take care of this life that I'm living. This tradition is tricking you into foregoing the life that you're living with the hopes of gaining an extra life. That doesn't feel like wisdom to me, to forgive or to forego the life that I'm living because I'm trying to earn an extra life. Yeah, it'd be great to be able to live for, another 100 years, another 1,000 years maybe. But as far as I can see, this is where it's at. The life that I'm living right now is what's most important. And the thing about that is that when we get beyond that recognition is when we start screwing up. We don't realize the harm that we're causing because we're not present in our life. Our mind is not in the here and now. Our body's in the here and now, but our mind is projected into the future. I'm trying to gain, again, this bonus life. And in my trying to gain this bonus life, I'm hurting the planet. I'm neglecting my kids. I'm not paying attention to what's right in front of me. I'm looking at the world saying that there's so much wrong. There's trash right on the streets. You don't got to go far to look for something to do, to have an impact. All you got to do is go outside and look around. There's plenty that needs to be done right here, right now. So Bible study, if you don't have a stack of notes, I question what you call Bible study, right? We're doing it here. I'm doing it here. And at the same time, I know that there's far too much for us to, or for my assertion, stick as though it's an ultimate truth. Plenty of people are going to see this shit and be like, whatever, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. We'd have to compare our reasonings, I guess. Yeah. There's a term from the Emerald Tablet of Thoth, and it's reflected in the Bible. It's reflected in the Zohar. It's reflected in many religious texts. The term is as above, so below. You've heard that maybe. That ideal is really important. It's relevant because one of the things that happens in the Christian tradition, I find, it happens mostly in the Christian tradition as far as I can see. We separate ourselves from our children's actions. That's a result of the Bible story. God even says that he creates evil, and yet he's looking at Satan or Lucifer or the person who's committing evil as being the problem, not taking responsibility. What did I create evil for? I've got children. I've mentioned this before. They're not perfect, or actually they are perfect, but we all have work to do. They make mistakes. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I can't separate myself from my children's actions. If they go out and get drunk and kill somebody, driving a car, I'm partially responsible for that. I am. I'm the person who's led them, who's guided them, or was supposed to, at least. And to just wipe my hands of them, I don't know what's wrong with them. Something I told them. We're reflecting what we're getting from what we consider to be above. God does the same thing, right? Blames you for your wickedness when he's the perfect person who has admitted that he created it. As above, so below. The inside reflects the outside. Within my own personal development, I've come to recognize that I'm not, again, I don't like to say that I'm not perfect. All beings are perfect. We can't compare ourselves to some other being. We're the only one of us that exists, which makes you perfect. And yet, there's work to be done still. That's what my teacher used to say. Yeah, we're all perfect. We just need a little work. I got to keep working. I still make mistakes. I still have misunderstandings. I'm doing my best. Really. And we all are. We all are. But again, this tradition tells us that there's something wrong with us. You're just inherently bad, forget about it. You deserve 100 years and 100 million years in a fiery pit. There's one of the things that happens with Christianity is things that people experience that they consider to be miraculous. We think we've experienced miracles. The thing about that is that if you look around, most religious traditions speak about something that they consider to be miraculous, something that goes outside of the usual bounds of what science would say was possible. It's not just Christianity. I mean, Muslims speak of miracles, Jews. I want to be clear. I haven't necessarily heard a Jew speak of miracles. I get the sense that they might. I mean, there's obviously miracles within the Bible, but I'm talking about within our personal lives. I know that I've heard Christians and Muslims speak of what they think of as miracles happening in their personal lives. That's not a reflection of or an indication that the religion that you're adhering to is the truth of things. Human beings have the capacity to make miraculous things happen. So much of what Jesus kind of points to, there are many elements that I think are meant as sort of how to say this? It does point us in some ways to our capacities. If you think about the story of Jesus walking on water, when he walks on water, I think it was Paul that was with him. And Paul was at first frightened when he sees a dude walking on water. If it's Paul, whoever it is, they say, they call out to Jesus and say, if that's you, then command me to walk on the water. And Jesus does. He says, come on over the water. And whoever it is, they step out of the boat and they take a step and then they take 2 steps. Then they start to notice the waves and the wind and they get frightened and they fall into the water. And when Jesus comes and pulls them out, he says to him, ye of little faith, if only you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you would tell that mountain to move and it would. I believe that story is an indication of something. There is a real element in that, right? Something is being transmitted, but it's then surrounded by a whole lot of fluff that distracts and deludes us. It creates the wind in the waters, the ripples in the waters that caused you to fall. We're going to have to get over Jesus. Jesus is Lucifer. The Bible's a trick.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.